together as a Mahasangha. Mahasangha because there are 11 countries joining us, one voice, one sound, and each day one country takes the lead in reciting words from the Tipitaka. And it has taken us 17 years to complete the entire Sutta Pitaka. This means that each day we complete maybe somewhere between 50 to 70 pages together. And if we continue to do this, it will take us another 25 years to complete the Vinaya Pitaka and the Abhidhamma Pitaka. And next year, we open the book of the Vinaya Pitaka. And Cambodia will take the lead as the chief organizer. So for 2 years, we will open the book and continue until we complete all of the books within the Vinaya Pitaka. Very important, especially for Bhikkhu and Bhikkhuni Sangha, to preserve the rules, the monastic rules. This helps to preserve and protect the Buddha Sasana. So this is our mission together. All of us that come here are voluntarily coming. We all come here with the freedom to recite under this beautiful shade of the Bodhi tree that gives us so much happiness and so much delight. Even if we don't know the meaning of the words that we are reciting, one word to recite together is to help to preserve and to protect the teachings of the Buddha. In this 21st century, we are collectively joining hand by hand, heart by heart, word by word, together to make the beautiful Buddha Vachana as if the Buddha was alive in front of us. And so these are the precious teachings of the Dhamma that we are reciting. And in the evening, we try to ask the wise elders to give us advice along meditation, along our spiritual practice, and even to consider aspects of what we are reciting so that we can come to understand what it is that we are reciting. So tonight we have requested Ajahn Achalo again. Many monks and nuns may know him because he's sitting under the Bodhi tree every year for hundreds of hours. You may notice that he's sitting very still. And so with such stillness comes understanding of the Dhamma. And so he is so kindly offered to share reflections in the Dhamma. For those of you who would like to know more about Ajahn Achalo was born in Brisbane, Australia in 1972. He developed a keen interest in meditation at the age of 20, and a year later left for Thailand to study Buddhism more intently. After a 2-year period practicing in various centers and monasteries, in 1996, Ajahn Achalo ordained as a Theravada bhikkhu under Ajahn Liam at Wat Nong Pa Pong, the monastery founded by Venerable Ajahn Chah. Although most of his training has taken place in Thailand, Ajahn Achalo has also lived in several international forest monasteries in the Ajahn Chah lineage. Ajahn Achalo is deeply grateful for his many opportunities to study, with well-practiced monks, as well as for having been able to train in several traditional contexts, including meditation monasteries, remote forests, and periods on pilgrimage. During his years of training, he has received personal guidance from many remarkable teachers, among them Ajahn Samedo, Ajahn Pasano, Ajahn Jayasaro, and Ajahn Kalayano. For most of his bhikkhu life, he has considered Tan Ajahn Anan, the abbot of Wat Marp Jan, to be his principal mentor. In addition, he has found the Dalai Lama's instructions and example to be of tremendous value. So this is his short biography of Venerable Ajahn Achalo, and he will speak on a topic. Last time Richard asked to share more about different aspects of the path, and so maybe he will be speaking on that. And after Ajahn Achalo's talk, please stay with us because we have a Sayadaw from the Paok Sayadaw tradition who will be teaching on mind, and that will be translated into English. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. I know it's a long day when we are reciting early in the morning and coming all in the evening, but once a year we do this together. And those of you who are interested to find out about the other Dhamma talks, everything is recorded and can be found on the YouTube channel LBDFI. LBDFI. So all the teachings are on YouTube. So now when we are waiting, please take time to just sit here, a chance to just be together and to wait for Ajahn Achalo. Thank you again for joining us.
dive straight in. Is it? Shall I start? Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang Dhammang Sanghang Namassami. It's my honor to have been invited to speak once again at the 17th annual Tipitaka recitation ceremony. Currently still chanting the Milinda Panha, is it, Wangmo? Do you know which chapter it was today? Doesn't matter, yeah. More than half, I think. Yeah. So I was reading through the Milinda Panha a little bit, and Wangmo asked me to speak a little bit about some of the content of the chant of the sutta that you've been reciting together. So part of the conversation between Milinda Panha, King Milinda, and Bhikkhu Nagasena, King Milinda has some doubts and some concerns. He says the Buddha is believed to have finished his cultivation, been liberated, purified his mind. So Nagasena, King Milinda wants to understand, why does he continue to meditate after his enlightenment here in this spot? And then Nagasena talks about the 28 benefits of meditation. So I thought I might brush on that a little bit. It's an interesting thing to consider that Lord Buddha has purified his mind, is enjoying liberation, but he continues to meditate. I think when we look at the way Lord Buddha spent his time, there's one of the watches of the evening where Lord Buddha meditates for 2 hours. There's another watch of the evening where Lord Buddha teaches devas. There are 2 watches of the evening where he takes rest, sleep, and then in the morning there's another 2-hour period where he meditates. So this would seem to suggest that meditation is a very noble act, part of the enlightened activity of enlightened people. So, chapter 4, verse 67. Venerable Nagasena, your people say everything which a Tathagata has to accomplish that had the Blessed One already carried out when he sat at the foot of the tree of wisdom. There was then nothing that he had yet to do, nothing that he had to add what he had already done. But then there is also talk of his having immediately afterwards remained plunged for 3 months in ecstatic contemplation. If the first statement be correct, then the second must be false. And if the second be right, then the first must be wrong. There is no need of any contemplation to him who has already accomplished the task. It is the man who still has something left to do, who has to think about it. It is the sick man who has need of medicine, not the healthy. The hungry man who has need of food, not the man whose hunger is quenched. This too is a double-headed dilemma, and you have to solve it. Both statements, O King, are true. Contemplation has many virtues. All the Tathagatas attained in contemplation to Buddhahood and practiced it in the recollection of its good qualities. And they did so in the same way as a man who had received high office from a king would, in the recollection of its advantages, of the prosperity he enjoyed by means of it, remain constantly in attendance on that king. In the same way as a man who, having been afflicted and pained with a dire disease and having recovered his health by the use of medicine, would use the same medicine again and again, calling to mind its virtue. Again, there are, O king, these 28 good qualities of meditation, in the perception of which the Tathagatas devoted themselves to it. And what are they? Meditation preserves him who meditates. It gives him long life and endows him with power. It cleanses him from faults. It removes from him any bad reputation, giving him a good name. It destroys discontent in him, filling him with content. It releases him from all fear, endowing him with confidence. It removes sloth far from him, filling him with zeal. Takes away lust and ill will and dullness. It puts an end to pride. It breaks down all doubt. It makes his heart to be at peace. It softens his mind, makes him glad. It makes him grave, gains him much advantage. It makes him worthy of reverence. It fills him with joy, fills him with delight. It shows him the transitory nature of all compounded things. It puts an end to rebirth. It obtains for him all of the benefits of renunciation. So that's a pretty wondrous list of the potential advantages of meditation. It obtains for him all the benefits of renunciation. These, king, are the 28 virtues of meditation, in the perception of which the Tathagatas devote themselves to. It is because the Tathagatas, O king, long for the enjoyment of the bliss of attainment, of the joy of the tranquil state of nirvana, that they devote themselves to meditation with their minds fixed on the end they aimed for. And there are 4 reasons for which the Tathagatas, O king, devote themselves to meditation. What are the 4? That they may dwell at ease, and on account of the abundance of the advantages of meditation, advantages without drawback, and on account of it being the road to all noble things without exception, and because it has been praised and lauded and exalted and magnified by all Buddhas. These are the reasons for which the Tathagatas devote themselves to it. So it is not, great king, because they have anything left to do, or anything to add to what they have already accomplished, but because they have perceived how diversified are the advantages it possesses, and they devote themselves to meditation. Very good, Nagasena. That is so, and I accept it as you say. So, according to what I've studied, after Lord Buddha was enlightened in this very spot, I think it was 7 weeks, the other suttas talk about, where Lord Buddha would spend, I think it's usually described as a week in the bliss of liberation, and then he would be contemplating certain themes. And it was definitely, from what one gathers from reading, it was with an attitude of reverence, of appreciation, of awe. And there were certain Dhammas that he recollected here, some of my favorite lists of Dhammas. One of them was when he was contemplating, how is it possible that I've perceived that which is difficult to perceive, realize that which is difficult to realize, that goes against the stream of the world. And he had these various knowledge. The 5 spiritual powers, when cultivated, made much of, lead to the deathless, merge in the deathless. Another of the themes of contemplation was the paticca samuppada, in forward and reverse. Another one of the subjects that Lord Buddha had insight was that the 4 foundations of mindfulness, when cultivated, made much of, lead to the deathless and merge in the deathless. So Lord Buddha is reviewing the incredible attainment and has perfect clarity about what were the particular conditions that led to that attainment and the bliss of liberation. So one list, which is more fairly comprehensive, I would say, is my personal preference is I love the short lists, and for myself, when Lord Buddha says these 5 spiritual powers merge in the deathless, lead to the deathless, that's enough for me. There's another, one of my favorite paragraphs is in the beginning of the Anapanasati Sutta, after the introduction, where Lord Buddha says, it is through cultivating breath meditation that one can fulfill the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Through fulfilling the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 7 factors of enlightenment are fully developed. In developing the 7 factors of enlightenment fully, the mind is liberated. It's a very beautiful and simple teaching. Through breath meditation, you cultivate mindfulness. That mindfulness becomes aware of these 4 spheres of reference or 4 foundations. Mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of Dhammas, Gayanusati, Vedanusati, Chittanusati, Dhammanusati. And then through that cultivation, the 7 factors of enlightenment are brought to fruition and the mind is purified. But because people have different character tendencies, sometimes some people need a short list. We were talking the other day about a bhikkhu who became enlightened after the Buddha gave him a piece of white cloth, and he wiped his hands, wiped his face during the day, and in simply seeing that the white became soiled, he had the insight, anicca, impermanence. That which was clean became dirty, that which was dirty can be cleaned. And that bhikkhu had been teased because he couldn't remember a single verse of teachings. The other monks thought he was very stupid and teased him for his dullness. Lord Buddha could see his faculties were quite sharp, actually. Not necessarily the intellect, but the capacity to have liberating insight. So some people need to keep it simple. Other people, because they have more restlessness or even more intellect, they need a more sophisticated contemplation to engage their intelligence. So the list that I will read off tonight, set 37 factors of awakening. We'll go through a few of these different lists. It starts with the lists of 4, and then it goes up in number 5, 7, and 8. And but I want to start with the Eightfold Path, because that seems a good place to start. The first of the Eightfold Path is right view. So the Eightfold Path, when the 37 wings of awakening are mentioned, the Eightfold Path is the last list. But for tonight's discussion, we'll consider it first. Right view in the Eightfold Path comes first, and there's a reason for this, I believe, and it's important. Keeping in mind all of the diverse religious practices and religious traditions in India in the time of the Buddha, many people believed that there was a permanent soul and there was a creator God, and that the purpose of spiritual practice was to merge one's permanent soul that had somehow been separated with the powerful creator God to realize Atman. And this is, Lord Buddha explains, a classic wrong view. Because what Lord Buddha explains we need to realize is Anatman, Anatta, not self. And there's nothing permanent in the conditioned experience. So right view, conventional right view, there are important things, because one of it is the belief in rebirth is part of conventional right view. Belief in karma is part of conventional right view. That's very important, because if people don't believe in karma and if people don't believe in rebirth, there isn't much motivation to be a virtuous person. If if you don't believe in karma and rebirth, most people will then tend to think, okay, so the point of life then is to have as much pleasure and happiness and fun this life. You often hear in kind of more materialist societies, you only live once, so you better make the most of it. Lord Buddha explains that's not true. There's been millions of lives since beginningless time, and there will continue to be, unless we undo the causes for rebirth. So this is an important motivating factor. We have to recognize that we're in a dangerous situation and that we have to liberate ourselves from that situation. So there is karma, there is rebirth, there is consequences to actions. Another aspect of right view is that there is the potential in beings to liberate themselves from the samsaric situation. That's everybody's potential equally. Also a very profound teaching, understanding that there was a caste system and there were people that were believed to be outside of, in lower castes who had no access to gods or heavens. Lord Buddha says no. Every conscious being has this Buddha potential, Arahant potential, that can be cultivated and liberation can be realized. Also very important, this is very important for our confidence. Lord Buddha demonstrated the supreme potential, and then he basically says, you all have this same potential. Follow this eightfold path, and that's where it leads to liberation. So after right view, let's go through the eightfold path. That's mundane right view. Supra-mundane right view is direct perception of the enlightened state of Nibbana, experience of Nibbana. So, right thought. So we have to train. This is the reason I wanted to start with this eightfold path, is right view is important. It helps us motivate ourselves correctly, helps us understand that if we aren't careful, we can get ourselves in big trouble. That's when we understand that we have to be careful even with what we think about. And so we can't stop having unwholesome thoughts, but we can try not to feed them more and more. And this is where mindfulness meditation is very important. When we come to do our breath meditation and you have an unwholesome thought, you just know a thought is a thought, and you try not to think the next thought and the next thought. You don't have to destroy unwholesome thoughts, but you have to know that it's unwholesome, and you recognize that's not worth pursuing. In the Dhammapada, Lord Buddha explains that mind is the forerunner. What we give our attention to, the mind becomes like that. So we do have to be mindful of what we're thinking, and we do have to begin training ourselves. The important role that formal meditation plays is that when we take a meditation object as our object, I'll talk about breath, for example. When we're picking up this, it starts as a neutral object, and as the mind becomes peaceful, it becomes a wholesome object. But when we place the attention on a neutral object, we are taking it off unwholesome objects. And when simply in this act of trying to be mindful of the breath, we become aware of the various thoughts and the qualities of those thoughts. One of the functions of mindfulness is that it discerns with more clarity, with more truthfulness, qualities. Mindfulness is sometimes described as truth discerning awareness. So just in this act of trying to be with the breath, when there's more presence of mind, more collectedness, we notice the quality of our thoughts, and we recognize, oh, that's actually unwholesome. Oh, that's wholesome. This is one of the functions of mindfulness. It brings more clarity. In a way, it's washing some of the dust out of the eyes. Lord Buddha says his teachings were for beings with little dust in their eyes. The act of formal meditation helps to clean the mind. So after right thought is right speech. So we need presence of mind, and we need to be mindful of our thoughts so that we can practice right speech. If we don't have presence of mind, if we don't recognize that the skillfulness or unskillfulness of what we're thinking, then it's just going to come out. Whatever we're thinking is going to come out. So speech has obviously very serious consequences. You can say a few harsh words when you're upset about something or upset with somebody, and that can hurt somebody's feelings, and they can be very angry at you and think ill will towards you for the remainder of their life. They can even become your enemy in future lives. So it's very important to understand that speech is powerful. Right action, samma kammanta, do good things, avoid harm. Right livelihood, we have livelihoods that don't harm others and don't enslave, don't manipulate, don't encourage unwholesome qualities in others. The last three, I think, pertaining to our meditation cultivation: right effort, virya; right mindfulness, sati; right concentration. Examples that are often brought to mind is that thieves need to have a certain amount of presence of mind and concentration when they crack into a safe. Hackers these days, digital thieves, need to have quite remarkable presence of mind and a capacity to focus. But this is wrong mindfulness, wrong concentration. So when Lord Buddha talks about right mindfulness, giving our attention and using our intelligence, our capacity as a human being, to give proper attention to things that are going to, Lord Buddha uses this lovely phrase, leading onwards. Another phrase which is lovely is leading to heaven and beyond. When we train ourselves in skillful speech, skillful actions, right livelihood, we're heading for the heaven realms and eventually to Nibbana. So, covering the Eightfold Path, right view comes first. Then we pay attention to our thoughts and our speech and our actions, cultivate good mindfulness and concentration, and then now I'm going to talk about the 4 foundations of mindfulness, another of the 37 factors of enlightenment. So, mindfulness of the body. In training in mindfulness, it's usually taught that we are mindful when walking, mindful when sitting, mindful when lying down, even mindful when going to the bathroom. This basically means you know what you're doing with your body at all times. This is because this seems simple, people often underestimate the importance of it. Presence of mind, a good quality of presence of mind, which is what is needed for samadhi and insight to develop, will only come about if we maintain presence of mind throughout all postures. So this is important. Oftentimes when the Buddha puts something first, it's for a reason. Mindfulness of the body. When we're in our thoughts too much, thinking about the past a lot, thinking about the future a lot, thinking about other places, other people a lot, the mindfulness is being scattered. It's being dissipated. So when we train, and for example now I'm speaking, but I'm also aware of the feelings under my buttocks. I'm aware of the feeling as my hand's holding this tablet. I'll be aware when I breathe in. I'm aware of those feelings because I'm a meditation monk and I meditate morning, afternoon and evening. I've trained myself to keep a certain amount of presence of mind in my body and know what I'm doing with my body. Then what happens is if you do that, when you come to meditate, you already have some energy there. You don't have to reel in all this scattered energy, or you don't have to start from like less than 0. You can start at 50, or you can start with some presence of mind, some collectedness. Ajahn Anan, we believe a very well-practiced disciple of Ajahn Chah, when he teaches the 4 foundations of mindfulness, he also puts great emphasis upon mindfulness of the body. And he says the reason is, if you try to be mindful of Dhammas, if you try to be mindful of thoughts, the mind is very fast and the mind is very deluding. So you think you're being mindful, but you lose the thread and you get lost in a different proliferation because the mind deludes. He says, however, if you train in being mindful of every footstep, mindful of every breath, what happens is that when you come to sit, you're aware of the feelings in the body, you're aware of the feelings of breathing, and that presence of mind is what notices the quality of the thoughts. So in training, in establishing and maintaining a consistency of what the body is doing, and a consistency of the feelings at the bottom of the feet, a consistency of the awareness of the in and out breath, that presence of mind is what knows whether a thought is wholesome, neutral or unwholesome. And as I was talking a little earlier, my favorite paragraph from the Anapanasati Sutta, in practicing breath meditation, the four foundations of mindfulness are cultivated. Because when you think about it, you come and you sit, you want to be aware of the breath. There's a thought. So you're trying to be aware of the in-breath, but you notice there's a thought. Then there's some shoulder pain. Then there's, if you're able to be with the breath consistently, some rapture, some tranquility. You start to be aware of pleasant feelings, wholesome mind states. The mind begins to become collected, wholesome dhammas. So just in this act of consistently being with awareness of breathing, one becomes aware of feelings, mind states, wholesome and unwholesome dhammas, just by sitting there, just by meditating. So, talking now about the four supreme efforts. This is important as well because oftentimes it's a bit of a conundrum because skillful practice is a combination of making consistent, skillful effort and also relaxing. And this is tricky because in meditation practice, one has to make the effort to relax into the awareness. Not try too hard, not be too willful. Trying too hard can be an obstruction. Too much desire can be an obstruction. But one does have to make effort. If we don't make the effort, we're not going to come and sit on the cushion. If we don't make the effort, we're not going to be aware of the in and the out breath. So effort is profoundly important, and it's the kind of effort that we need to learn is sophisticated. We need to know when we need to be willful. So for myself, I often teach my students, you have to be willful and determined absolutely to get on that pillow. And you have to have an aspiration to want to be liberated and want to have samadhi and want to have insights. And as soon as you sit on that pillow, you have to drop all of that. It's like you need that to get you there. Once you're there, you just have to be with that in-breath and just have to be with that out-breath. All of the desire, all of the aspiration, we need to put that aside. And then we need to invest in making the effort because it's the consistency of the effort that brings the results. So we need to develop some nuance here. When to be willful, when to be determined, when to be very, very gentle. And too much willfulness in meditation ends up making people not want to meditate. There's too much fault-finding mind. But if you just get to the pillow, and then once you get to the pillow, you're very gentle, you're very kind, you allow the mind to be the way it is. Ajahn Anan also places a lot of emphasis on training mindfulness with loving kindness as a support. Then you're going to end up loving meditation. If you know how to meditate skillfully, it's like being a friend to yourself. Once you're on that mat, have a lot of kindness, a lot of tenderness, a lot of friendliness. You're there because you care for yourself, you care for your mind, you want to realize your potential, you want to liberate the mind from all suffering. So in the four great efforts, there is the effort to prevent the arising of unwholesome states. So this is why I think a daily meditation practice is important, because this is what gives us the presence of mind that makes that to start to be possible. I think if we don't have a daily meditation practice, it's very difficult to prevent the arising of unwholesome states. One example for modern people might be road rage. Somebody cuts in front of you and you just get really angry. It's like if you didn't do your morning meditation, you got up, you started playing with your phone, you turned on the news, you ate something while you were looking at something, you jump in the car, you're listening to some music, attention's very scattered. Somebody cuts in front of you and the mind just goes into anger because it doesn't have presence of mind, it doesn't have some collectedness. And one of the things Ajahn Anan, my teacher, says often is keep the mind in the middle. Don't be swayed by liking and disliking. This is actually the shortcut to developing samadhi and developing insight. It's not a difficult teaching to understand, but it's a difficult thing to do. Keep the mind in the middle. Don't fall into liking and disliking. And then what happens is the mind develops more and more collectedness, more and more stability, more and more capacity to attend to mind states skillfully. The second of the efforts, great efforts, is to abandon unwholesome states. So, try to prevent unwholesome states from arising. Once unwholesome states have arisen, we have to abandon them. So there's different ways to do this. Sometimes you just sit and you wait for the unwholesome state to cease. But if there is aversion, irritation, anger, we study about the antidotes. We consciously cultivate loving kindness as an antidote to ill will. If we're of a more lustful proclivity, if there's a lot of lustful thoughts, we contemplate the nature of the body, the bones, the blood, food after it's eaten, what's it like. We really consider these things in a disciplined way, and it does work. It does lower the levels of lust, it lowers the levels of delusion, perceiving bodies as beautiful. There are many meditation practices praised by the Buddha for making the mind bright, wholesome. Sometimes in kind of depressing ages, in a time when sila is degenerating in the world, the number of people keeping precepts is less, the number and scale of the conflicts is greater. A practice that I like to do myself is to consider how many devas there are who are already established in enlightenment. In Thailand this day and age you can see bad news about monks on TV every day. And many people might have the sense of, oh, the religion is over, there's no good monks left. There are plenty of good monks left, but you have to know them, you have to know where they are. They're not the ones in the market, they're not the ones in the asleep on the sidewalk in the morning. So if you see these things every day, it is depressing. So then we can consider how many of the people in the time of the Buddha that became stream enterers were reborn in Dawatimsa heaven? How many of them were reborn in Tushita heaven? It is said that 75% of the population of Rajgir had attained to stream entry by the time Lord Buddha passed into Parinibbana. That's a lot of stream enterers. Many of them would have been reborn in heaven. So that when I have that sense of the sasana is ending, no, it's not. There are millions of beings who are established in the stages of enlightenment, and then there are the other bodhisattvas already who have received their predictions of Buddhahood that will come and be enlightened in this place. Maitreya will come. So that sometimes Devanusati, recommended by Lord Buddha, recollect bright things, recollect optimistic things, recollect happy things. Bring the mind into a state of balance, because the mind does become like what it focuses upon. And I think it's good to limit the amount of news that one consumes if news is often depressing. The effort for the arising of wholesome states. So we try to prevent unwholesome states, we try to abandon unwholesome states, we make effort to give rise to wholesome states, thoughts of goodwill, thoughts of generosity, thoughts of loving kindness, and peacefulness that comes from breath meditation, very wholesome. And then the effort to maintain wholesome states. So that covers everything. You know, it's one of these short lists. Don't allow wholesome states to arise. If they do arise, abandon them. Cultivate wholesome states. Sustain wholesome states. That's another way of saying, training your mind to be liberated. The 4 iddhipada, the foundations of success. Chanda, Virya, Chitta, and Vimamsa. Chanda is sometimes described as will, sometimes described as aspiration. So we have to have this aspiration. Virya is energy. So this list is often described when people are trying to cultivate samadhi, the jhanas. You need to have the aspiration that you want to develop concentration, skillful right collectedness. Then you need to put forth effort. And it's effort and energy have a very close relationship. Sometimes I feel like there's just not much energy in the mind, and it's making an effort anyway that brings energy into the mind. This is something that we all need to learn, because if we come to sit, sloth is one of the 5 hindrances, of course, and we come to sit and there's tiredness and there's sloth, and you think, oh, I just don't have the energy to do this, I'm going to go and have a sleep. That doesn't work. You come and you sit, there's tiredness, okay, you go and wash your face, light a candle, do some chanting, and then sit. And you'll notice that there's energy. So we have to put forth effort to give rise to energy. Consciousness, chitta, so chanda, virya, chitta. This is the applying the mental factors. So if you want to give rise to skillful collectedness, you are mindful of what the meditation object is. You place the interest, you maintain the interest consistently. And then the fourth of the basis of success is vimamsa. This is reviewing. Very important that we have a look every now and then, how is our practice going? So Lord Buddha describes these as the foundations for success. So we have the aspiration, we make the skillful effort, give rise to the energy, apply the mental factors, and then we have a look, how's it going? Because sometimes the mind is the inner conditions and the outer conditions are always changing. When you come to this training as a young monk, I ordained when I was 23, now I'm 50. You know, the mind that I have now is not the mind that I had when I was 23. And in some respects, it's almost like you die and you're reborn several times within the same life. So it's like the meditation objects that I used as a 23-year-old are not necessarily the ones that will bring the best results as a 50-year-old. So we have to have a look, is it working? Are my meditation practices working? Do I need to tweak something? But even while saying this, I'm very wary, I'm a bit concerned, because chopping and changing too much is also dangerous. Modern people have a short attention span and expectation of fast results. So chopping and changing too often is also not good. We do need to keep with things consistently enough to see if it, and sincerely enough to see if it is working. And then if clearly it's not, then we might need to visit our teacher or make some adjustments. So yes, the four bases of success: the aspiration and the will, then putting forth the effort, giving rise to the energy, applying the various factors in the training, and then reviewing, how's it going? The five faculties: faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. These, and then the next one is the five powers, interestingly: faith, energy, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom, the same things. I was talking about this the other night. I think the reason Lord Buddha has mentioned these twice is because he really wants us to pay attention here. Let's talk about them as faculties. Faith is a faculty that's functioning in your mind now, whether it's skillful or not. So some people have faith that the monks will secretly give them the lottery number. This is very common in Thailand. And although it can seem harmless, and I know plenty of people who win the lottery frequently, there really is something to this phenomenon. But it's a terrible distraction, because there you are, you've spent eons cultivating the virtue to meet well-practicing monks, and they're finally telling you what you need to purify your mind, and you're thinking, I'm going to buy the lottery on the 15th and the 30th, and Ajahn talked about the five spiritual powers twice, that must be 55. And it's like, okay, you might win the lottery, but you're still going to be reborn and dead and reborn and dying and reborn and dying. There's no end to wanting to win the lottery. Other people have faith in investing in gold. Other people have faith in Bitcoin. Other people have faith in movie stars. So we have to notice, and where is my faith faculty? What do I have faith in? If you have faith in politicians, you'll tend to be disappointed. If you have faith in insurance companies, sometimes they go bankrupt. What is it that you have faith in? And Lord Buddha, for faith to be a spiritual power, we have faith in Buddhas, we have faith in Nibbana, we have faith that Dana, Sila and Bhavana will liberate us, we have faith in Aryan practitioners, we have faith in the law of karma, good deeds bring wholesome results. That's what we have faith in. Energy. Where is our energy and what kind of energy is it? So as a faculty, we do have energy. If you play violent computer games for hours a day, you're going to have a lot of bad energy, right? If you listen to heavy metal for hours, there's going to be some bad energy around. We notice, where is the energy? Even if you listen to Bollywood all day, it might not be evil, but it's not necessarily wholesome. Mindfulness, we were talking about this earlier, what are you being mindful of? So I mentioned about the importance of limiting one's entertainment and news, attention that one gives to news, because what we give attention to affects our minds. And, human being is a very sophisticated animal, and we can develop some really extraordinary skills. And you can become very wealthy by learning ways to steal from people, delude people. And but karma is real. What kind of concentration? What are you concentrating on? I think the biggest search on the internet in this day and age is pornography. It's worth mentioning. It's like not many monks talk about it because it's a bit kind of uh-oh, but I think we need to, because if the mind is focusing upon a person's genitals for hours, as there's a lot of people have a porn addiction. So if people are looking at the genitals or the breasts or the various orifices that they're interested in, and if they're doing that day after day, and if they're doing it week on end, month on end, year on end, you are not heading towards Nibbana. This is wrong concentration. You're likely heading towards the animal realm or lower. So occasionally monks have to mention these things, please. Please allow me. Wisdom. So there's different types of wisdom, different types of intelligence. For wisdom to be truth-discerning wisdom, wisdom that is going to help you liberate yourself, then it has to be seeing the three characteristics: impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, not self. So the 5 powers: faith in Buddhas, faith in Nibbana, faith in the threefold training, faith in your potential, faith in the practices, faith that sowing the causes leads to the results. Energy, so we have to put forth an effort to bring about energy, don't just expect energy to be there. And then we learn how to maintain good and wholesome energy. Various meditation practices that brighten the mind, energize the mind, uplift the mind. Long-term, skillful, optimistic view. And mindfulness, we practice right mindfulness. Mindfulness of the body in all postures, knowing whether mind states are wholesome, neutral and unwholesome. And then we train in mindfulness of impermanence, mindfulness of death, etc. Mindfulness practices that lead to an increase in wisdom. Concentration, we train in skillful types of concentration. Lord Buddha praises the cultivation of loving kindness. In the 11 Benefits of Metta Sutta, 11 Benefits of Loving Kindness Sutta, he explains that for those who cultivate metta, the mind concentrates easily. So metta practice can become concentration, and training in cultivating metta as a concentrated state, the mind will become concentrated on other meditation objects more easily. So we have to make these 5 faculties into 5 powers. 7 factors of enlightenment. There's repetition here. Mindfulness, we've talked quite a bit about that. Mindfulness of the body, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of mind states, mindfulness of dhammas. The second one is important, I haven't mentioned it yet. Investigation, Dhamma Vichaya, investigation into Dhamma. So this is where we're using our particular gift as a human being to have a reflective faculty and a contemplative faculty. So you notice, is this a wholesome mind state? What gave rise to this wholesome mind state? Is this an unwholesome mind state? What gave rise to this unwholesome? We start to notice causal factors. After I meditated, I felt like this. When I don't meditate, I feel like this. We have to notice what affects the mind in a wholesome way, what affects the mind in an unwholesome way. And that comes into those 4 great efforts, maintaining wholesome states and not allowing unwholesome states to take over. But then investigation into Dhamma in terms of applying it towards purifying the mind. In the forest tradition of the last century and this first decades of this century, it seems like the most profound results in terms of beings actually getting liberated. It seems that contemplation of the nature of the body has played a huge role in the practice of Lumpur Man, Lungta Mahabua, Lumpur Cha, Ajahn Chah's enlightened disciples. And I wanted to mention this because, again, it's overlooked. It seems too simple. People want sophisticated, impressive concepts to be enamored by, in awe of. And yet, it seems to be the case that if a person cultivates enough mindfulness and then trains that mindfulness in simply seeing bones as bones, this can liberate a mind, and has liberated minds in recent history. So investigation into Dhamma, it doesn't have to be memorizing the Abhidhamma. Sometimes Lumpur Nun explains that the identification with the body is where most of the attachment is. So if we develop enough mindfulness through our walking meditation, our breath meditation, we're able to apply that mindfulness to simply knowing the bones in the fingers, for example. And the mind will actually see it. With eyes closed, the mind will see bones. And when the mind sees bones that clearly, sense of self just disappears because it sees clearly this is bones, this isn't a self. And then one keeps applying that awareness to know earth element as earth element, and many beings attain to stream entry at this point. So many people want stream entry, many people want to be Sotapannas. So I know people who did attain that simply by seeing the earth element in the body as the earth element in the body. And it doesn't sound very sophisticated, but if you want to be liberated, it's something we should pay attention to. It's not easy to do because the thing that makes that possible is that the quality of the mindfulness and the collectedness is quite steady. So we need to do all of these practices to make sure the mindfulness is good, clear, really strong mindfulness. And then there's some presence of mind that then we're able to apply that mindfulness and just stay with this knowing the nature of skin, the nature of fingernails, the nature of bones, until that insight occurs. But Lumpur Cha, my teachers, Ajahn and Nun, have had really great results from investigating the nature of the body, seeing it as elements, not self. Next in the 7 factors of enlightenment, energy. Similarly, we were talking about that. It's one of the iddhipadas, the basis for success. When we maintain our mindfulness consistently, that's what occurs. Energy builds up in the body and mind because it's not being dissipated into thoughts about the past, thoughts about the future, thoughts about other people. We still need to think about these things, but not obsessively, not compulsively. A practitioner learns how to use thought in the right amount and keep a certain amount of presence of mind in the moment, in the body. So when we have consistent mindfulness and energy arises, when we apply the mindfulness to the meditation object, feelings of rapture. This is one of the 7 factors of enlightenment. Simply by being with the breath consistently, without thinking about other things, feelings of rapture arise. And then deeper than rapture is tranquility. That's the next factor of enlightenment. Passati in Pali. Ajahn Anand describes the rapture as being like the waves on the ocean, on the surface of the ocean. And tranquility is when it goes deeper, you dive deeper. And it's like a cool, steady, full feeling. So if you're consistently with the breath and some feeling of rapture comes, we try to go deeper than that. It's a good sign, but we try not to get agitated, we try not to get fascinated, and we just continue to stay with the meditation object that brought that result, and it goes into a deeper, cooler, more steady. And then number 6 is ekagata, one-pointedness. So it's through that process, rapture, tranquility, continuing to stay with the mind object. At a certain point, continuing to stay with the meditation object, At a certain point, the mind becomes so peaceful, the peace becomes the object. That's how I experience it, or that's how I think it's a nice way to describe it. As the meditation object leads to peaceful feelings, and at a certain point, peace is the meditation. So one-pointedness, ekagata, it kind of sounds like a forcing, or it sounds kind of contracted. And I think better ways to describe it is right collectedness and peace. The mind stops shaking, the mind stops being dissipated, the mind is settled. But it's not a squeezed, boxed-in, contracted experience. It can be a very, very spacious experience that isn't moving from its peaceful awareness of vast space. So, consistency in mindfulness, doing a lot of meditation, wholesome energy, rapture, tranquility, concentration arise. The seventh of the 7 factors of enlightenment is equanimity. Equanimity is often misunderstood. People think that equanimity is indifference. Equanimity is equipoise. Equanimity is balance. Ajahn Sumedho describes equanimity as serenity. In its purest state, equanimity is the 4th jhana. So going through all of that tranquility, all of that rapture, all of that serenity, and the mind just becomes stable, immovable. That's not indifference, that's profound. It's like a mountain, immovable mountain that's not going to be swayed by anything. If you imagine the Buddha under this Bodhi tree enlightened, and Mara coming with his forces and all of these weapons coming at him, and nothing can move him from his enlightenment. Is equanimity, a very profound thing. And equanimity, I think one of the best ways, possibly the only way to truly develop equanimity is through a lot of meditation. Because it's when we meditate that we see happiness and sadness, joy, sorrow, pleasure, pain, and we just keep placing the mind in the middle, trying to find balance, and through doing that a great deal, we learn how to stay in the middle, how to stay balanced, how to stay still, and allow mind states to arise and cease and settle, and then stay with that stillness. So I already went through the 8-fold path, and that is my thoughts on the 37 factors of enlightenment. I'm aware that there's another bhikkhu who's going to share some Dhamma with you. So I offer that for your reflection. I hope something I said was helpful. I rejoice in your practice. I wish you every success. May you all grow in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 basis of success, the 5 powers, the 7 factors of enlightenment, and grow in the 8-fold path until you are liberated. I want you to put it on me one moment. Yeah, I want your blessing.
We are very blessed to hear such wise advice from a great bhikkhu who spends his life in deep practice, and to share from direct experience how meditation can deeply change our lives. And it's not like reading a book, it's from the lived experience, and you can see that the words that the Buddha mentions in various ways through the Eightfold Path, that we can hear from a Venerable Bhikkhu from his own experience, and how much it's sort of in parallel in the experience. So it's very helpful for us to hear directly from a living example of a deep practitioner. Now, I'd like to turn the attention to our second speaker for this evening. Actually, yesterday we had a chance to meet Venerable Bhante with Venerable Ujjavana, and it was my very good luck to hear about Pauk Sayadaw, because I've never been to Pauk Sayadaw's meditation center in Myanmar, but I have heard from many people that this is one of the very serious places to practice meditation in the forest. And this year, Venerable Ujjavana, who is also very much connected to the International Tipitaka Chanting Council, he mentioned that his Dhamma brother is here from Pauk Sayadaw's temple. And I thought it would be a very good opportunity for him to also join in the wise reflections and to hear from Sayadaw about mind and consciousness and anything that he would like to share with us, as we are all on the path of Dhamma, and we can hear maybe some specific instructions from the Pauk tradition. I'd like to share a little bit about his bio. And so Venerable Hitara Sayadaw entered a novice life since he was 9 years old. And since then, Sayadaw never returned to the household life. He has been a monk since the age of 9. And he received 15 bachelor in Pariyatti dispensation. And he is the founder and the chief monk of 10 Hitadara monastery and Hitadara philanthropic schools. Sayadaw established 2 Pariyatti teaching centers and 3 meditation centers. Sayadaw is also the founder of the Hitara Dhamma School Foundation and Hitara Foundation. He is the first ever leading monk who started a Dharma school for kids and youths in Myanmar, and he received an honorific certificate called Sasana Daja Dhamma Sariya, dignified by the government of Myanmar. Sayadaw took a vow since he was young to propagate the teachings of the Buddha in Myanmar within his 50s, and to propagate Buddhism and Theravada teachings around the world. And we are now welcoming Sayadaw to join us this evening for tonight's second Dhamma talk. So please, Venerable Bhante, join and take your seat here, and we look forward to hearing more instructions on mind and consciousness. This will also be translated into English by Venerable Ujjavana, and he will be assisting Bhante.
Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Dhamma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Dhamma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Dhamma Sambuddhassa Bong မနေ့ကတော့စိတ်နဲ့ပတ်သက်၍စိတ်ရဲ့သဘောတရားလေးတွေကိုပြောကြားပြီးဖြစ်ပါတယ်နော်ဘုရားရှင်ကိုရောမြတ်ဘုရားဖြစ်လာတာစိတ်ကြောင့်ပါပဲဘုရားရှင်ရဲ့ညီတော်ဖြစ်တဲ့အရှင်ဒီဝဒ္ဒအပေကြသွားတာလေစိတ်ကြောင့်ပါပဲဒါမှမဟုတ်ကြောင့်ဒီတရားဝါတွေမှာအရေးကြီးဆုံးကဘာလဲဆိုရင်စိတ်ဖြစ်ပါတယ်နော်
Yesterday, Sarum already mentioned the nature of the mind. So our Buddha attained enlightenment because of the Satan. In the same way, the brother of the Buddha, whose name is Devadatta. Devadatta was reborn in head because of this Satan. So the most important thing is the mind. So the mind can help the people to be lower and to be higher. So the mind is very important.
ဒါကြောင့်အခုတရားနာနေတဲ့ပရိသတ်တွေအားလုံးပေါ့အရေးကြီးဆုံးဖြစ်တဲ့ကိုယ့်ဘဝမှာကိုယ့်ရဲ့အစုဝေးခန္ဓာအစုဝေးတစ်ခုမှာအရေးကြီးဆုံးကဘာလဲဆိုတာကိုနံပါတ်1သိဖို့အရေးကြီးပါတယ်မိမိဘာဖြစ်နေတာလဲမိမိဖြစ်နေတဲ့အနေအထားဒီမိမိရဲ့စိတ်ကြောင့်ပဲဒါမှမဟုတ်ကြောင့်ဘုရားရှင်ကစိတ်တတံကိလေသာဘိက္ခဝေတတ္တာတံကိလေတန္တိစိတ်တဝိသုဒ္ဓဘိက္ခဝေတတ္တာဝိသုသန္တိတရားဝါတွေစိတ်တွေညှဉ်းနှွမ်းနေတဲ့အတွက်ကြောင့်တရားဝါတွေညှဉ်းနှွမ်းကြရတာပူလောင်ကြရတာဒုက္ခရောက်ကြတာဖြစ်တယ်စိတ်တွေဖြူစင်တန်ရှင်းနေမယ်ဆိုရင်တရားဝါတွေကဖြူစင်တန်ရှင်းနေကြမှာဖြစ်တယ်
Here, all Dhamma friend should note how important the mind is. So, Buddha mentioned that Saita Sankileta Zata Dankiletandi Saita without that without Zani it meet because of defilement Saita all beings become impure. Because of the pure say that all beings become pure. So that's why the mind is very important for all of us, or for all the beings to be pure and to be impure.
အဲ့တော့စိတ်တွေကဘာကြောင့်ညှဉ်းနှွမ်းနေရတာလဲဆိုရင်ကိလေသာတွေနဲ့ပေါင်းနေလို့အဲ့တော့ယင်ကိလေသာကလည်းအမတန်ဖုံဖုံတို့ဘဝမှာဘဝနဲ့ဘဝရလာကြတဲ့ကိုကတန်တရာတစ်လျှောက်လုံးမှာအမြဲတမ်းဘဝနဲ့တသားတည်းဖြစ်နေတသားတည်းဖြစ်နေဒီကိလေသာကြောင့်ဒုက္ခရောက်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့အသိဉာဏ်ကိုပဲတရားဝါတွေကမသိကြဘူး
Because of the mind, all the beings become, all the beings suffered, or different kinds of mental suffering and physical suffering. So Saita's or minds become impure because of impurities and defilement. It means kilesa. Because of kilesa, our mind become impure. Because of impure mind, all being suffers and habit all the time.
အဲ့တော့အခုဖုံဖုံတို့ရဲ့လောကသားတို့ရဲ့အနိုင်မဲ့ကျေးဇူးရှင်ဖြစ်တော်မူသည်မြတ်ဗုဒ္ဓပေါ်ထွန်းလာတဲ့အခါကျမှဒီတရားဝါတွေကဒါကြောင့်ဖြစ်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့အဓိကယံသူပေါ့အဓိကဖုံဖုံတို့ရဲ့ယံသူဖုံဖုံတို့ပဲ့ခွာရမှာဖုံဖုံတို့မပေါင်းသင်ရမယ်ကိလေသာပေါ့စိတ်နဲ့ကိလေသာနဲ့မပေါင်းသင်ရေးစိတ်နဲ့ကိလေသာနဲ့ခွာရေးကိလေသာကိုစိတ်ကအနိုင်ယူရေးအတွက်ဒီနေ့ meditation ပေါ့တရားအားထုတ်တယ်ဆိုတဲ့အလုပ်ဆိုတာဖြစ်ပေါ်လာတာဖြစ်ပါတယ်နော်
Only when the Buddha attained enlightenment, or only when the Buddha appear in this world, we note how say that detach from the impurities or defilement. So unless the Buddha appears, we don't know how say that prevent detachment and defilement. So that's why here Sayadaw would like to mention how the mind to be tamed and to be polite for tonight.
အဲ့တော့ဒီအလုတ်ကိုပေါ့စိတ်ဖြူစင်တန်ရှင်းရေးဆိုတဲ့အလုတ်ကိုလုပ်တော့မယ်ဆိုလို့ရှိရင်နံပါတ်1အကောင်းဆုံးနေရာလေးပေါ့အကောင်းဆုံးနေရာကတော့တော့ပေါ့အရင်ညရုက္ခမူလတစ်ပင်အောက်ပေါ့ဒီလုပ်ငန်းတွေအကောင်းဆုံးနေနံပါတ်3ကတော့တုံညာကာရတိတ်ဆိတ်အေးချမ်းတဲ့နေရာလေးကိုနံပါတ်1ရွေးချယ်ရမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်နော်
In order to beautify the mind, so we need to choose two things. Number one, so we have to approach to the foot of the tree, and then number two, we need to choose the quiet place. So, in order to purify the mind.
အဲ့လိုရွေးချယ်ပြီးသွားပြီဆိုရင်အရိယာပုတ်ပေါ့အရိယာပုတ်က၄မျိုးလုံးလျောင်းထိုင်ရသွား၄မျိုးလုံးအလုပ်လုပ်ရမှာဖြစ်တယ်ဒါပေမဲ့ဒီအလုပ်ကိုလုပ်တဲ့အခါမှာအကောင်းဆုံးပေါ့အစဉ်ပြေဆုံးအသင့်လျော်ဆုံးကထိုင်ခြင်းအရိယာပုတ်ဖြစ်ပါတယ်နော်
After choosing the places, we need to walk with the pause. For things, it means sitting, standing, and walking. Sitting, standing, walking, and then lying. So, among these poses, the sitting is the most suitable for all of us. So, the most powerful for meditation.
အဲ့လိုမိမိပဓာနာအလုပ်ဖြစ်တဲ့ဒီတရားအလုပ်ကိုရွေးချယ်ပြီးတဲ့အခါမှာယောဂီအနေနဲ့မိမိနှစ်သက်တဲ့ကမ္မထံတစ်ခုကိုဆွဲဆွဲမြဲမြဲအားထုတ်ရမှာဖြစ်ပါဆွဲဆွဲမြဲမြဲအားထုတ်ရပြင်းပြင်းထန်ထန်အားထုတ်ရမှာဖြစ်ပါဒီအာနာပါနဆိုရင်ဝင်လေထွက်လေလေးမှာတတိကပ်ပြီးတော့ကြည့်နေရမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်နော်လေလေးပဲကြည့်နေရမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်
After choosing the suitable position, then one must subtract or must try for one of the meditations. So one meditation, one choose the important. If someone, for example, someone like Anapana meditation, he or she must focus on the tip of the nose in order to purify the mind. So tip of the nose is the object of meditation for Anapana.
ဟုတ်ပြီအဲ့လိုတရားအထုတ်တဲ့ယောဂီတွေအနေနဲ့ပေါ့ဟိုဘုံဘုံတို့အချိန်မရသည့်အတွက်ကြောင့်နည်းနည်းပဲပြောမယ်အဲ့တော့ယောဂီအနေနဲ့ဥပမာနဲ့ပေါ့နော်ဘယ်ပုံဘယ်ပန်းဘယ်နည်းလမ်းဖြင့်ဖြစ်ဒီတရားကိုလုပ်ရမလဲဆိုရင်ဘုရားရှင်ကဥပမာနဲ့ဟောခဲ့တယ်အဲ့ဥပမာကတော့စင်ရိုင်းဥပမာဖြစ်ပါတယ်စင်ရိုင်းနေတောထဲမှာစင်ရိုင်းနေအဲ့တောထဲမှာစင်ရိုင်းနေကိုစင်ရင်ဖြစ်အောင်လုပ်တဲ့အခါမှာ၄မျိုးသောအချင်းအဖြစ်လုပ်ရပါတယ်ယောဂီကလည်းဒီကိလေသာပေါ့ကိလေသာကြောင့်ရိုင်းဆိုင်နေတဲ့စိတ်ကိုယဉ်ကျေးအောင်လုပ်တဲ့အခါမှာ၄မျိုးသောအချင်းအဖြစ်လုပ်ရမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်အဲ့တော့တောထဲမှာရိုင်းနေတဲ့စင်ရိုင်းကြီးကိုယဉ်ကျေးအောင်လုပ်ဖို့အတွက်နံပါတ်1စင်ရင်နေနဲ့မြဖန်ရပါတယ်မြဖန်ရပါတယ်နံပါတ်2ဖန်ပြီးပြီဆိုလို့ရှိရင်ဒီတိုင်းထားလို့မရဘူးကြိုးကြီးကြီးနဲ့တုပ်ရပါတယ်နံပါတ်3အဲ့စင်ကြီးတွေကိုအစာလျှော့ကျွေးရပါတယ်နံပါတ်4အဲ့စင်ကြီးကိုချွန်းနဲ့ပေါက်ပြီးတော့လေ့ကျင့်ပေးရပါတယ်အဲ့လို၄မျိုးသောအချင်းအဖြစ်ပြင်းပြင်းထန်ထန်လေ့ကျင့်လိုက်တဲ့အခါမှာအမတန်ရိုင်းဆိုင်သွားတဲ့စင်ကြီးကအမတန်တန်ဖိုးကြီးတဲ့အမတန်လိမ္မာတဲ့အမတန်အသုံးဝင်တဲ့စင်လိမ္မာကြီး ဖြစ်သွားတယ်တဲ့
Here, the Buddha through the simile in order to define our mind. So the Buddha said that there are four white elephants in the forest. So if we would like to tame those white elephants, we need to use the four ways. In the same way, we have to train our minds with four things. So to train and to control the white elephant, number one, we need to use the big rope. And then number two, we need to use, we need to give the food very lessly. And then number three, so we need to use the elephant which has already tamed, already polite. And then number four, we have to use the weapon to tame the white elephant. So there are four ways to tame the white elephant. In the same way, in order to control and purify our mind, there are four methods taught by the Buddha.
အဲ့တော့စင်ကြီးဘာကြောင့်ရိုင်းတာလဲဆိုရင်တောကြီးထဲမှာဆုံးမမဲ့သူမရှိလို့စောင့်ရှောက်မဲ့သူမရှိလို့ရိုင်းတာဖြစ်ပါတယ်စင်ကြီးဘာကြောင့်လိမ်မာသွားတာလဲဆုံးမမဲ့သူရှိလို့စောင့်ရှောက်မဲ့သူရှိလို့လိမ်မာသွားတာဖြစ်ပါတယ်
Why the white elephant become a white? Because there's nobody to control and to train the white elephant. If there's someone who control and train the white elephant become and polite and become tame. So the white elephant become a tamed and polite white. There's someone who teach him to be tamed and to be polite.
အဲ့ဒီစင်ကြီးအတိုင်းပဲဖုံဖုံတို့ရဲ့စိတ်ကအတူတူပဲတဲ့စင်နဲ့ဖုံဖုံတို့အားလုံးသောပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ရဲ့စိတ်ကအတူတူပဲတဲ့
So in the same way, our mind very similar to the white elephant.
ဖုံဖုံတို့ရဲ့စိတ်ကဘာကြောင့်ရိုင်းနေတာလဲဆိုရင်တဲ့ရူပယုံကာမဂုဏ်တတ္ထာယုံကာမဂုဏ်ကန္တာယုံကာမဂုဏ်ရတ္တယုံကာမဂုဏ်ဖုဒ္ဓဘာယုံဆိုတဲ့ကာမဂုဏ်တော်ကြီး၅တော်အဲ့တော်ကြီးကအမတန်ကြီးတယ်ဘလောက်ဆိုတာပြောပြလို့မရအောင်အဲ့တော်ထဲမှာစိတ်ကိုလွတ်ထားလိုက်တာအဲ့ကိုစိတ်ကိုလွတ်ထားတဲ့အခါတရားတွေကအကုန်လုံးရိုင်းဆိုင်သွားစိတ်ကပူလောင်နေတယ်ပြာမြနေတယ်တည်ငြိမ်မှုမရှိဘူးခံညာမှုမရှိဘူးမြင်မြတ်မှုမရှိဘူးအေးချမ်းမှုမရှိတော့အဲ့ကာမဂုဏ်တော်တယ်အဲ့စင်ကြီးတိုင်းပဲတဲ့
So why our minds become a root and become a unpolite? Because we freed our mind into the jungle of the five senses. So five senses visible and visible forms or visible form of object, and then the hearing object, and then nose object, and then taste or object, and tangible things or objects. Because of these five senses of object, our mind become it unpolized, and tamed, and wimed. So as long as we freed our mind into those five senses of pleasures, our mind become unpolite.
ဒါကြောင့်ယောဂီတို့အနေနဲ့ပေါ့တ တကယ်တမ်းအလုပ်လုပ်ကြတော့မယ်ဆိုရင်အဲ့ဒီဘုရားရှင်ပြောပြတဲ့စင်ဥပမာတိုင်းနံပါတ်1စင်ရင်နေနဲ့မြတ်ဖန်မှာဖြစ်ပါစင်ရင်နေနဲ့မြတ်ဖန်တယ်ဆိုတာကတရားအထုတ်တဲ့နေရာမှာတရားအထုတ်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေနဲ့အတူနေရာမှာဖြစ်တယ်။အမှတရားစခန်းတို့လိုဒီလိုတရားအလုပ်လုပ်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တို့နဲ့နံပါတ်1အတူ join ထားဖို့လိုတယ်မြတ်ဖန်မယ်။တယောက်တည်းမရဘူးဒီအာယုန်တွေထဲမှာတရားအထုတ်တဲ့ဆိုရင်ဖြစ်နိုင်ဖို့တော်တော်ခက်ရမှာတယ်။အတိတ်ကပါရမီဓာတ်ခံကောင်းတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဆိုရင်ဖြစ်နိုင်တယ်။တာမန်ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်ဆိုရင်မဖြစ်နိုင်ဘူး။ဒါမို့ကြောင့်စင်ရိုင်းကိုနံပါတ်1မြတ်ဖန်တယ်ဆိုတာကယောဂီတို့နဲ့အတူနေပါတဲ့တရားအထုတ်တဲ့နေရာတရားထုတ်တဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တရားပြတဲ့ပုဂ္ဂိုလ်တွေနဲ့နံပါတ်1အတူနေပါလို့ပြောတာပါတဲ့
Number 1, in order to tame the wild elephant, means here someone who would like to practice meditation should stay with the people who already practice meditation. So the one who already practice meditations is very similar to the elephant who has already tamed. So in the same way, so if someone would like to follow and practice meditation, he or she should live in state together with the people who already practice meditation.
Number 2ကကျိုးနဲ့တုပ်ဆိုတာစိတ်စင်နဲ့တူတဲ့ကိုယ်စိတ်ကိုကျိုးနဲ့တုပ်ဆိုတာတတိဆိုတာကျိုးနဲ့တူတယ်တတိဆိုတာကြီးရတယ်စင်ရိုင်းစိတ်စင်ရိုင်းညအမတန်ကြီးတယ်ကျိုးလေးတိတိလေးဆိုရင်လွတ်ထွက်သွားတယ်ဒါမှမဟုတ်ကြောင့်တတိကြီးနဲ့တုံမှခိုင်မယ်တဲ့ဒါမှမဟုတ်ကြောင့်ကျိုးနဲ့တတိနဲ့တူပါတယ်တဲ့
Number 2, we have to use the big rope to control the one elephant. In the same way, in order to practice and follow the meditation, we need to use the rope of mindfulness. With the mindfulness, we can control our mind. So the more the stronger mindfulness we have, the more polarized our mind become.
Number 3 number 3ကဒီစင်ကြီးဟာသူကအစားတွေရနေအားကောင်းရင်မမချရင်ဆုံးမလို့မရဘူးဒါမှမဟုတ်စင်ကြီးကိုအစာလျှော့ကျွေးတယ်လို့ပဲယောဂီကကာမဂုဏ်အာယုန်တွေကိုအကုန်လျှော့ရတော့ရူပယုံကာမဂုဏ်တော့မကြည့်တော့နဲ့တတ္တယုံကာမဂုဏ်မကြအောင်နေခန္ဓာယုံကာမဂုဏ်ရတ္တယုံဖုဒ္ဓဘာယုံကာမဂုဏ်အဲ့ကာမဂုဏ်တရားတွေကိုယောဂီကအကုန်လျှော့ချပြရမှာဘုရားရှင်ဒုက္ခရတ္တိယကျင့်တဲ့အခါမှာအကုန်လျှော့ပြလိုက်တာဘာမှမရှိတော့ဘူးဒါမှမဟုတ်အဲ့လိုအရင်ဆုံးကိုဒီယောဂီကတရားရခြင်းနဲ့တနည်းစိတ်ပေါ့စိတ်ကိုအရင်ကောင်းစေခြင်းနဲ့စိတ်အပြည့်အဝဖြစ်ခြင်းနဲ့ပေါ့ကိုလိုချင်တဲ့တရားရခြင်းခုနအာယုန်တွေအကုန်လျှော့ပြရမယ်အကုန်လုံးလျှော့လိုက်ပြီဆိုမှစိတ်ကအကုန်ကျသွားတာဒါမှမဟုတ်ကြောင့်စင်ကိုအစာလျှော့ကြွေးမှစင်ကြီးကမာနကျတယ်လို့ယောဂီခါလည်းပဲအာယုန်၅ပါးကာမဂုဏ်တရားတွေကိုအကုန်လုံးကိုလျှော့ပြရမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်ဖြစ်တယ်လို့နေတတ်ရတယ်ဖြစ်တယ်လို့စားရတယ်ရတာနဲ့ကျင့်တတ်ရမယ်ဘာမှတောင်းတကြမရှိဘူးအဲ့လိုနေရပါမယ်တဲ့နော်
Number 3, we have to use the food for the elephant. The less we give the food to the elephant, the weaker the elephant become. Then the elephant become weaker and weaker, and then we can control it very easily. In the same way, we reduce the 5 senses of pleasure. So if we reduce the 5 senses of pleasure, our mind prefer those some pleasure. Then is a great beneficial to practice meditation.
နံပါတ်4ကတော့ချွန်းနဲ့ပေါက်ပြီးတော့ဆုံးမရတယ်လို့တမ္မပဋ္ဌာန်လုံလဝရိယပေါ့ဝရိယမရှိရင်မအောင်မြင်ဘူးချွန်းနဲ့ပေါက်တာနဲ့ဝရိယနဲ့တူတယ်ဒါမှမဟုတ်ကြောင့်ယောဂီတို့ကစန္ဒစိတ်တဝရိယဝိမာန်တဆိုတဲ့ဣတိပါဒတရားကိုလက်ကင်ထားပြီးတော့ကျင့်သုံးမယ်ဆိုရင်တတန်တရာလုံးကပါလာတဲ့ကိလေသာတွေအကုန်နဲ့ပြီးတော့ဝိသုဒ္ဓဆိုတဲ့စိတ်တွေဖြစ်လာမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်အဲ့ဝိသုဒ္ဓစိတ်တွေစင်ကြယ်ပြီဆိုရင်ယောဂီသူတော်ကောင်းတို့လိုချင်တဲ့နိဗ္ဗာန်ဆိုတာရရှိပြီဖြစ်ပါတယ်
Number 4, in order to tame the wild elephant, we have to use the weapon. In the same way, in order to practice anapana meditation, we need to use the great effort. It means samapranat, aviriyat, and then for Edipara, Sanda, Uriya, Saita, so we mansat. So if we use those Ediparats, so we will reach the final goals to mean Nibbanat.
ကဲအချိန်ကသိပ်မရှိတော့လို့ဒီလောက်ဆိုရင်တော့အောင်နော်နောင်ကြမှာကြုံမှဖုံဖုံတို့ပြန်စားကြတာပေါ့နောက်တစ်ချိန်ကြုံအောင်မှာပေါ့နော်
So today so we don't have a time, that's why Sarah's Dhamma talks stop here. So if we have good luck, we meet again here and somewhere else for listening to Anapana meditation. Thank you very much.
စာဒုစာ
Sadhu, sadhu.
အချိန်မရှိတော့
Thank you, Sayadaw. We have about 10 minutes for questions. If anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, please, microphone is here if you don't mind. Bante and Sayale, if you have any questions, please come here. We give chance to monastics first and then afterwards lay people.
Bandhami Bhante, take my respect and regards again. So it has been great to get you here again like yesterday. So actually big thanks and thanks big thumbs up for the good lesson on the mindfulness and mind engineering, along with how to get control over the mind to operate by our own. But I have another questions. It could be out of context as compared to today's topics. I have a question on 5 precepts actually. So I'm a new Shraman. My name is Bodhipriya Shraman on behalf of Bangladesh Buddhist Monastery. So I have a confusion of number 1 precept, which is according to precept number 1, killing of any living beings is totally prohibited. Okay. But on the other hand, we used to consume living creature for maintaining our livelihood and keeping us alive. So did the Buddha encourage us to be vegan, or there is any kind of alternative explanations? So would you please clarify us? I believe many of us, like me, have the confusion on that in this regards.
So Bante is asking if, with the first precept about not killing, if there's any mention about this in the sutras about vegan, vegetarian, if there's anything that Sayadaw can say about food and not killing. Vegetarian, yeah. Vegan, vegetarian. More and more people are turning to become vegan. It's also a very healthy diet. Vegan diet is very healthy.
Mashiva. Tikoti Pritauta. Tikoti Pritauta. Tirama. GUB.
But we used to have meat, fish, everything to living our livelihood.
About being vegetarian. Basically, first precept, not killing, but then some may eat meat. Is there anything comment about that?
Dadulu saya meluro horara mashivu. Di masale yare, salule yare. Dame saya no, tumyubo. Jinyunda, mienda jada bo. Diosa kudre, that haralu giant Messiah. Na? Diosa kudre jinyunda lu tiele, Messiah. Kudre, that de lu miele, Messiah. The Messabu dogaro, Piasinga, Jotagere, Saba lu daidonaro, Missiva. Masale yabare, sale yabare. Dame, kuna, I don't you do chia nini de sayano abademare.
The Buddha specifically does not mention, but if someone knows that the meat, someone killing him to eat, that he has intention to for this person or to this monk, now he already know or that he should not eat. Maybe he might hear like this, that he might have doubt. Then for this reason, that if he has intention or doubt, or if you see or if you hear, he or she, the monk or the nuns should not use this one.
Sadhu,
Sadhu, sadhu.
Okay.
Blessed.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you all for joining this evening's Dhamma talk. Wise reflections by both Venerable Ajahn Achalo and also Sayadaw from Myanmar, and translated by Sayadaw Ujavana from the temple here in Bodhgaya. Thank you both so much for this short but very profound Dhamma teaching. And tomorrow we will begin again the Dhamma recitation under the Bodhi tree. Thank you. This concludes tonight's evening Dhamma talk. Thank you. Tipitaka Sayadaw will be giving the Dhamma talk on tomorrow after our ITCC Council meeting. So Tipitaka Dara is one of the highest, most learned Sayadaws. According to all of the Tipitaka, knows the entire Tipitaka by heart, and he's coming especially from Myanmar to join tomorrow to give the Dhamma talk. So please come for that. It should be very special. Usually in the country, thousands and thousands of people will try to hear him. So we're very lucky. Thank you all. Good night. Sleep well. Bye-bye.